Their first fight ended in controversy.
Straight on the button by Pacquiao. Hard left hook by Bradley.
And new WBO welterweight champion of the world, Desert Storm.
8-time world champion Manny Pacquiao seeks to avenge his shocking loss to Timothy Bradley.
What has Timothy Bradley made of?
Steel Pacquiao Bradley 2. Saturday, April 12th, live on pay-per-view.
A house fire in Chippenham leaves one man dead, a disabled man forced to live in bushes, plus how a little boy is making a big difference. We've got those stories and a whole lot more tonight. Good Saturday evening. I'm Wani Toot, and NB12 Weekend starts now. Topping news tonight, a 59-year-old man from Chippenham died tragically last night when fire extensively damaged his home on Eaton Street. Residents say the victim lived in the 11-room structure with his brother. However, it wasn't until fire officials extinguished the blaze that they realized someone was inside.
I felt extremely bad because I knew him all my life, basically.
The charred remains of an old chair sit in the bedroom of an 11-room structure on Eden Street in Chippenham. Fire officials say that's where they found the body of a 59-year-old man who died last night when his home was gutted by a massive blaze. Officials have not yet released his identity. However, Eden Street resident Van Thompson identified the victim as Kevin Young, who reportedly lived here with his brother. Thompson, who has lived across the street from the Youngs for nearly 50 years, says he saw flames coming through the roof shortly before 10 p.m.
So I decided to call 911, and by the way, it's not working. So, but if someone else was able to get through, probably on the different number. And then the guy tried to out the fire, but he couldn't. The hose was only able to wet this roof here. And my hose I was trying to use was too short, so I couldn't be of no assistance there.
Fire Services Chief Superintendent Walter Evans says fire officials arrived on the scene 7 minutes after receiving reports of the fire.
We met heavy smoke and flames coming from a single-story concrete structure. Officers immediately went on the inside of the facility and extinguished the fire.
The 11-room house was extensively damaged, but never did officials imagine that someone was actually inside the home. Evans and Thompson say it wasn't until the blaze was extinguished that they discovered Young's body in a chair.
He didn't worry too much, as I said, I know, because he was here earlier to me for something, then after he went out. And I said, well, that was an hour ago, and so I said, well, I know he probably isn't in there. But after a while, they checked, the police checked, and when they out the fire and they did the examinations, they found that someone was in there, but they said...
If we had received information that there was a body on the inside, obviously, there would have been a different approach. But we didn't have that information. We just received information. It was just a straightforward structural fire.
Thompson described the incident as sad and unfortunate.
We were never that really friendly, but I know a neighbor died, so I felt bad about it.
It's unclear how the fire started. However, Evans says they do not suspect foul play at this time. He also revealed the home did not have an electricity supply. Evans also responded to claims that residents' initial attempts to reach fire officials failed.
Okay, we do not have any information to support that. But what we say to individuals, the public at large, is if they specifically with fire emergencies, if they do have any challenges with 919, the fire control number has a direct number that they control. In fact, there are 2 direct numbers that they can call, which persons are manning 24 hours per day. The first number is 322-1225, 322-1225, and the second number is 302-8404.
Police investigations also continue into a house fire that claimed the lives of 6 people, including a 2-year-old girl on Homestead Street last September. The 6 victims were unable to escape the small structure. Most of them were burnt beyond recognition. Evans explained that some investigations take longer than others.
Some investigations take a little bit longer, than others. And sometimes you come to a quick conclusion, sometimes you don't come to such a quick conclusion. So you have to keep on, and that's what we're doing. We're continuing on with our efforts in terms of investigating fires. We have some fires which have been investigated for probably 2-3 years, and we've not come to a conclusion as yet. And sometimes you have to send off information samples off for analysis, and you have to wait until such time as those samples to return.
Police reported an increase in fire-related tragedies last year. Evans stressed the importance of fire safety.
Well, fire safety is so critically important for persons who reside in residential homes. We want to say to them that they need to pay close attention to their surroundings, ensure that their homes, which are powered by electricity, ensure that the homes are powered and they're properly wired. If they're having some challenges with cooking ranges, they ought to pay close attention to those things. Also, for those persons who do have security bars, there's a concern in that you can ensure that you keep the criminal on the outside, but then if there's a fire, you have to be careful to ensure that you do not keep yourself trapped on the inside. And so for that reason, we say for those persons who have security bars to ensure that at least one of those windows have an emergency escape.
The recent murders of a 15-year-old girl and a British man visiting Grand Bahama have raised concerns over crime on that island. However, the Assistant Police Commissioner insists police are doing all they can to keep Grand Bahama residents safe. In a special 2-night series, our Jasmine Bonamy takes a look at crime on Grand Bahama.
Given the recent spate of murders on the island, Assistant Commissioner of Police Emric Seymour admits crime is a concern that cannot be ignored.
Concern was raised about the 3 recent murders we've had. Of course, I'm concerned about that too.
Earlier this month, Grand Bahama MPs Peter Turnquest and Obi Wilchcombe expressed concern about crime on Grand Bahama. However, on April 1st, Police Commissioner Ellison Greenslade said there was no major concern about crime on that island. Between March 30th and April 1st, 3 people were gunned down on that island, including a 15-year-old girl who was murdered at a bar in 8 Mile Rock. And most recently, British national 56-year-old Edgar George Dart was killed during a home invasion. The murders have grabbed both national and international headlines, placing the spotlight on that island. Seymour insists that crime is under control in Grand Bahama, despite what he called the recent isolated incidents.
Crime and elements of criminality is very low. The year 2013, we would have seen significant decreases in all levels of crime in Grand Bahama. All levels of crime in Grand Bahama. The year 2014 to date, we're still seeing a similar trend where crimes are in fact down in all areas. Now, notwithstanding, we've had several significant incidents which would have raised concern members.
Seymour adds that police have launched several crime-fighting initiatives on the island. Reporting for NB12, I'm Jasmine Bonamy.
Meantime, police here in New Providence are investigating 5 armed robberies. 2 of those incidents were reported around 11 a.m. Friday. In both incidents, police say a gunman traveling on a bicycle robbed business establishments on Robinson Road. About 12 hours later, 2 men armed with a shotgun robbed the man of his cell phone, jewelry, and cash as he was walking along Hampton Street. The 4th incident involved 3 men who robbed the man of cash and his cell phone as he was walking along Burial Ground Corner shortly after 2 a.m. An hour later, a gunman robbed a man in Stapleton Gardens before fleeing in a gray vehicle. Gun-related crimes remain a major concern for authorities. In an effort to clamp down on gun crimes, police have taken more than 100 illegal guns and 2,000 rounds of ammunition off the streets in just under 4 months. Officer in charge of the Firearms Tracing and Investigation Unit, Superintendent Ken Strawn, says that's higher than the number of guns seized this time last year. However, he was unable to provide statistics for the first quarter of 2013. He attributes the increase in gun seizures to several initiatives.
The police is doing a lot of good work. Our stop and search is reaping as good dividends. Our focused attention on those persons who have previously offended with weapons, we're going back where we find persons are out there, and we are finding that a number of incidents are occurring with the use of firearms out there on our streets.
In 2013, police seized 438 illegal firearms and nearly 6,900 rounds of ammunition. Just this week, authorities in Exuma arrested 2 Bahamian men in connection with the seizure of 4 guns that were allegedly smuggled from the United States to the Bahamas in a shipment of household items.
We are seizing more weapons, and we will continue our aggressive approach in so doing. And I would use this opportunity to invite members of the public who have in their possession or know of persons who have in their possession any weapon that you know to be illegal that could one day be used against you or your loved one, to please reach out to us, or if you wish to turn those weapons in, we'd love to take them off of your care.
When NB12 weekend returns, a disabled man claims he's sleeping in bushes. Plus, government considering a mandatory pension plan. So stay with us.